To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.
Hello my dear students, welcome to today's lesson. Today I am going to discuss with you all the paper 2 of the G.C.E O-Level 2020 examination. In the previous chapters, I discussed the paper 1 with you all, that is the MCQ type questions, and you all know paper 1 is out of 40 marks and paper 2 is out of 60 marks. But initially it is marked out of 120 and they convert it to 60 and that is added with the total marks of your paper 1. So here, if we look at the structure or the format of the paper, I have put the first 2 pages together. You all can see initially they have this top part, the header of the paper. So here you can see, students, the header of the paper. If I show that you all more clearly, you can see this is the header of the paper. Here the all rights are reserved by the Department of Examinations, Sri Lanka. So they are the ones who conduct the exam, that is the G.C.E ordinary level exam. So here this particular box, you are familiar with this number 34 corresponds to the subject science. Then you have E for English medium and 2 indicates that it is paper 2. And then here you can see General Certificate of Education ordinary level examination year 2020. So that is the 2020 O-Level paper. Again here they write it as Science paper 2. It is written in all 3 languages because this is conducted parallelly in all 3 languages. That is why it's all given here. This is just the format of the paper that is given to you all. Then here you can see 3 hours. That is for you all to answer all the relevant questions of the paper. Here you will be answering 4 questions in part A, they are all compulsory, and 3 questions of your choice from part B. So to answer all 7 questions, you will be getting 3 hours. In addition to that, here you can see additional reading time 10 minutes. So those 3 hours are for you all to answer the questions. But to read and select the questions that you want to answer, you get another additional 10 minutes. So that you become familiar with the format. You select the questions you want to answer from part B. To do all that, you get additional 10 minutes reading time. So altogether, you will be getting 3 hours and 10 minutes for the paper. Then, use additional reading time to go through the question paper. Select the questions you will answer and decide which of them you will prioritize. Is that clear? So, use that time to read the questions, go through the paper, then you select the questions and then you decide how you are going to prioritize it. If you feel for one question you might need a little bit more time, you do that first. And then you answer the question where you don't need a lot of time. So, that is up to you all, how you are going to answer the question. Then you write the index number here. Now, you need to write the index number on this paper because you all have to remember, students, this paper consists of part A and part B. Part A, you will be writing on the paper itself. In the spaces provided on the paper, you will have to write the answers and you have to return that paper part A. But part B, you can take it with you all. Answering the part B will be done on a booklet provided to you all. So there also you have the instructions on the first page. You read them carefully and from the next page you start answering the question. You need to write the question number on each of the page in that booklet. And normally you will be using separate booklets for separate questions. Then you have to attach all the booklets and this part A paper together. You have to tie them together. And in all the pages, it is better for you all to write the index number. Normally, you have to write the index number on all the pages. Even on this question paper, write the index number on all the pages. So that is the question paper. Then if you look at the instructions given before the questions, instructions, first one, write your answers in neat handwriting. That is very important because the examiner has to understand your answer. Part 1, you just put a cross. There, it's easy. But here, the examiner has to read and understand the answer. So, for that, you have to write in neat handwriting. Especially when you write formulae, subscript, superscript, all that, when you write units, the correct units. So, everything has to be written in very neat handwriting. The second one, answer the 4 questions in part A in the space provided. So, you have to write it in the space provided. You can't do it on another booklet. You have to write it in the space provided. Of the 5 questions in part B, answer 3 questions only. So, you have to read all 5. You have to answer 3 questions only. It can be in any order. You can even do question number 9 first, and then you can do question number 7, and you can do question number 5. It doesn't matter. Or it can be in the order question number 5, 6 and 7. It doesn't matter. From question number 5 to question number 9, you need to answer 3 questions only. So, you have to select them. You have to prioritize. Here, that is what is told to you. You have to prioritize what you are going to answer first, and then accordingly you answer the question. Last one, after answering, type part A and the answer script of part B together and hand over. So, part A you will be answering on the paper. Part B you will be answering in the booklet. You have to tie everything together and hand it over. If you need additional booklets to answer the questions related to part B, you can request it. But you will only get one paper of the part A. Is that clear? So then, if you look at part A, normally part A is known as structured essay type questions. There you write the answer on the paper itself. So, if you look at the question, part A. So, here it is a figure, a question related to a figure. You will see if you have been looking at different papers. Actually, students, before I go to the format of the paper, now if you have a paper with you, if you answer the paper first and then if you listen to my discussion, that would be very beneficial for you all. So, to do that, you can get a copy of this paper from the Department of Examinations website, or from the link given under this particular video. You can download the PDF format of this paper, and then you can have a copy with you. So, then you can answer it easily. So, now if you look at the format, I am sure you are familiar with the format of O-level papers. Normally, part A, the first question is related to biosphere. Biosphere, environment, the structure of environment, pollution, that particular lesson. So, always the question is related to that particular lesson, and it is a compulsory question. So, here also you can see they have given a diagram with an environment. Always it comes with a diagram as well. So, based on that, there are questions. And in this also you can see that is part A of the first question. Then under that there are many parts. Now here this is actually given as a table. Here I have just put the format for you all, for you to look at the question. So you need to answer all of them in the space provided. Then if I move on to the second one, here you can see there is part B. Now that is also a biology related question. So the first question, part A, will be related to biosphere and part B will be related to a biology lesson. So here you can see the spaces are provided, and here you will be answering on the space provided. Most probably part B is also related to the concept in part A. So this is a continuous question related to biosphere. Then if you look at the second question, again here you can see that has a part A that is related to organelles and functions of a cell. Then part B that is related to tissues. So that is also related to biology. Different units of biology. So that also has part A and part B. And here there is a part C as well. Part C also based on photosynthesis. So that is all these lessons are biology lessons. So different biology lessons, components from different biology lessons are combined together as the second question of part A. Then you look at the third question of part A. You all can see these diagrams, those are related to lattices. So molecules, lattices, so you all know this is a chemistry related lesson. That is part A of the third question is chemistry related. If we move on to part B, here you can see that is also a reaction given to you. So that means that is also a chemistry related lesson. So the third question of part A is chemistry related, different units of chemistry related lessons. So from that you get part A and part B. Then look at the fourth question. Here you can see a trolley on a table and all that. Then immediately you all know this is the physics lesson. So fourth question, part A is physics. Same way part B also. If you look at part B also, here you can see again a physics lesson. So the first question, biosphere, related to that. Second question, biology. Third question, chemistry. And fourth question, physics lessons. That is the format of part A. So here of course, since I have given only the format, I have continued the questions of part B here. But for your exam paper, part A will be a separate paper, part B will be a separate paper because you need to attach part A with the answers and the booklets together. Part B, you can take it with you. So part B again, you can see starts from question number 5. And here you can see answer only 3 questions from the questions number 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So this starts from question number 5 because part 4, question number 4 belongs to part A. So part 5 again has part A. You can see this is part of a digestive system. So immediately you know it is a biology related question. Then if I move on, here you can see part B also is related to kidneys. So that is again a biology related question. So the fifth question is a biology related question. Then if you look at the sixth question, can you all see? Now this is a fractional distillation tower. You can see that. So that means it has to be a chemistry related question. Question number 6. Then here you can see a reaction mixture thermometer. So that's also part B. That is again question number 6 part B, chemistry related. So question number 6 is related to chemistry type units, chemistry units. So that continues and here it is out of 20 marks. So that is another thing you have to remember students, the part A questions. Part A questions you will be answering 4 questions. Those 4 questions, each of them are out of 15 marks. So the total will be out of 60 marks. Now in part B, you will be selecting 3 questions. Each question contains 20 marks. So that again is out of 60 marks. 3 questions, 20 marks each. So total is 60 marks. So altogether, the paper 2 will be marked out of 120, which will be divided by half. So it will be out of 60. That will be added to paper 1, which is out of 40. That will be the total or the final mark. Is that clear? So like I said, the 6th question is a chemistry related question. Then if we move on to the 7th question, here again reading labels with optics lesson. Part A, optic lesson. Then part B, you will see related to friction, movement, energy. Again, all are physics related units. These question number 7 is related to physics. Then question number 8, part A is related to an organism. So it is a biology question. Whereas part B, here is related to pressure. So here also the question continues. So that is a physics part. So you can see here question number 8. A part is biology, B part is physics. So here there are combinations of different lessons. Then if you move on to question number 9, here this is a chemistry based question and the last part is a physics based question. So 5th question of part B is biology, 6th question is chemistry, question number 7 physics, question number 8 is a combination, question number 9 is also a combination. Sometimes you can have part A, B and C where you have biology, physics and chemistry all three, or it can be a combination of two like chemistry and physics, the previous one biology and physics. Something like that will be given to you. So that is the format of your question paper. So when you answer, you have to make sure that you balance your time. You take those 10 minutes reading time to read and understand the paper, get an idea of the paper, select the questions that you are going to answer, and then accordingly without leaving out any part of the question. Because each question has part A, part B, part C, as well as each part A has many parts. So subparts are also there. You should make sure that you answer all the parts relevant to one particular question. That is very important. Otherwise, you will be losing marks. And make sure you leave enough space, at least one line space between the answers. You don't have to leave too much of space. At the same time, don't crowd your answers. Leave space and write in very neat handwriting so the examiner can easily read and understand your answer. So that is how you answer the paper. I'm sure you all can understand that. So with that introduction, students, now I'm going to move on to the questions. I will start with part A. So before you listen to my discussion, it would be beneficial if you answer the question by yourself first, and then you can compare your answers with my discussion. So with that, I'll move on to the next slide. So like I showed you all, part A, this is the structured type questions. These are all compulsory. You have to answer all 4 questions and they have to be answered on the paper itself. So this is the first question, part A of the question. The following figure indicates several common sources of pollutants and the gaseous pollutants produced by them. So now as you read the question, you can see it is related to pollution, and always the first question, the first structured question is related to biosphere. Either related to pollution or population graphs, those are all included in the first question. So as you can see, this is related to pollution. Now what is pollution? You all know there is the atmosphere, then there are water bodies and the terrestrial environment. If there are chemical substances which are pollutants that actually can cause harm to the environment, living organisms as well as the environment, when they are added to the environment and due to that there are ill effects, that process everything together is known as pollution. And the chemical substances that can cause ill effects to the environment as well as living organisms are the pollutants. So pollutants are of various types. You all are familiar with that. Here we are looking at gaseous pollutants produced by them, that is the sources of pollutants and the gaseous pollutants produced by them. So there are different sources. For example, when there is a vehicle, a car that is running on petrol, a fuel, and then when this fuel undergoes combustion, there is carbon dioxide released to the environment. So there, the combustion of fuel is the source of the pollutant carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is the pollutant. Now since carbon dioxide is directly emitted to the environment by that particular pollutant source, we call carbon dioxide as a primary pollutant. Now when these primary pollutants undergo a change in the environment, let's say for example, if there is sulfur in fuel, fossil fuel. Then sulfur dioxide, sulfur trioxide can be released to the environment. Then they are primary pollutants. When the sulfur trioxide dissolves in water to form sulfuric acid, or sulfur dioxide dissolves in water to form sulfurous acid, they can lead to acid rain. Now the H2SO4, H2SO3, sulfuric acid, sulfurous acid, those are known as secondary pollutants. So that is what is explained here. The primary pollutants indicated in it are the gaseous pollutants directly added to the atmosphere. So if we look at the picture, we will understand that. Before that, I'll read the introduction. The secondary pollutants produced from the primary pollutants undergoing chemical changes in the atmosphere are also indicated in the figure. So if you look at the figure, you can see here there is a volcano shown, then there is the aircraft, then a land area where you have the natural, it looks like a natural area where you have the plants growing naturally. Then there is a cultivated land, then eutrophied water body, then you see factories here, motor cars, passenger buses, cities and houses are shown. Then you can see the sea where there are maritime vessels, ships and all those. Then you can see the primary pollutants. So these are the sources of pollutants. There, can you see pollutants there? They have said several common sources of pollutants. So these are all sources of pollutants. From them, directly these pollutants are evolved to the atmosphere. So these are all gaseous pollutants. Since they are directly evolved by the, released by the source, they are known as primary pollutants. Then here you can see another arrow. These primary pollutants are being converted to secondary pollutants. So in the atmosphere, there is a chemical reaction that converts the primary pollutants to secondary pollutants. That is the introduction given there. Then if we look at those, now here you can see aircraft. From the aircraft, look at the primary pollutants: sulfur dioxide SO2, carbon monoxide CO, nitrogen dioxide NO2, ammonia NH3. So from aircrafts, usually carbon dioxide, fuel combustion. In addition to that, if it is fossil fuel, then obviously there is sulfur dioxide released. Then if you look at volcanoes again, you will see it evolves sulfur dioxide in addition to carbon dioxide. Then carbon monoxide, usually if there is incomplete combustion, then carbon monoxide will be released. Then you can see here cultivated lands. Cultivated lands, there can be agrochemicals, there are again waste materials, from those also all these primary pollutants, even ammonia. If there is organic matter, if they are undergoing decomposition, then from that ammonia can be released. Now eutrophied water bodies, you can remember students, additional there is overpopulation of algae growing in the eutrophied water, and when they die, anaerobic bacteria acts on it, and when that happens, gases like hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, methane, they are released to the environment. So here ammonia is released from eutrophied water. Then NO2. Now here you can see factories. Now factories use fuel sulfur dioxide. Maybe if it's a factory where nitric acid is produced, nitrogen dioxide. Then even ammonia, carbon monoxide, they can be released. Then motor cars, passenger buses, you can see usually they also have fuel combustion. So carbon dioxide, if there is incomplete combustion, carbon monoxide, and also if it is fossil fuel, then sulfur dioxide. Then here you can see cities and houses. Again, in the household, the industries, the city environment, there is lot of fuel usage. So they evolve these pollutants. Maritime vessels, ships and sea-related vehicles or sea-related vessels. So from them also you get all these pollutants, the primary pollutants. So, if you look at them, primary pollutants are sulfur dioxide SO2, carbon monoxide CO, nitrogen dioxide NO2 and ammonia NH3. Now, from this, if you look at the secondary pollutants, you can see sulfur trioxide. You know, when sulfur dioxide reacts with oxygen in the atmosphere, you get sulfur trioxide. SO2 plus oxygen gives rise to sulfur trioxide. Then here you can see sulfuric acid H2SO4. Normally, SO2 gets oxidized to SO3. SO3 dissolves in water giving rise to H2SO4. At the same time, SO2 dissolves in water gives rise to H2SO3. That again gets oxidized to H2SO4. So, if we just write down those changes, students, I am not going to write the balanced chemical equation, just to recall what we have discussed. SO2 gas with oxygen gas, you get SO3 gas. This, when dissolved in water, you get H2SO4. At the same time, when this dissolves in water, you get H2SO3, and H2SO3 can be converted to H2SO4. The same way, if we have NO2, when NO2 dissolves in water, you get HNO3, nitric acid. Then there is ozone. Now, ozone, again ozone in the troposphere. You all know, in the atmosphere, O3, ozone, we have the good ozone. Good ozone is in the stratosphere, which absorbs UV radiation and prevents the UV radiation from entering into the atmosphere. But we have the bad ozone. What is that? That is in the troposphere. You are familiar with the layers of the atmosphere. Troposphere is the layer that is closest to the earth crust. Immediately, the atmosphere where we breathe from. If there is ozone in that layer, if we inhale that, that can become a problem. It can cause respiratory diseases. It can reduce the yield of crops. So, that is why ozone is also a pollutant. But it is a secondary pollutant. And you remember, there are good ozone and bad ozone. Okay. So, those are the information that we need to know related to this. In addition to what is given in the diagram, in the figure, we know all these. So, now we have to answer the questions related to this figure. So, then, select an example relevant to each of the following statements from the figure and fill in the blanks in the table. So, here they mention table because in the paper it's given as a table. So, the first one. A pollutant source producing primary pollutants without human interference. So, here you need to look at certain terms. It has to be a primary pollutant without human interference. So, you need to select that source. If we look at the figure given there. Now, look at all these sources. Out of these, you can see aircraft is man-made, whereas volcano is a natural source. But the rest of the things, cultivated land, eutrophied water, factories, motor cars, cities, passenger buses, maritime vessels, all those are with human interference or man-made sources. But volcanoes is a natural source, and volcano releases sulfur dioxide. In addition to that, even carbon dioxide during the combustion, but sulfur dioxide comes from volcanoes. So, that is the correct answer for the first one. A pollutant source producing primary pollutants without human interference. So, that is going to be volcanoes. Volcanoes. Then the second one. A secondary pollutant affecting living beings favorably in the upper regions of the atmosphere and unfavorably in the lower regions of the atmosphere. So again, look at the terms. A secondary pollutant, and they have mentioned the two layers of the atmosphere. Favorable in the upper region, not favorable or unfavorable in the lower region. What is that? Ozone. Because when I explained to you all itself, I told you all students, you all can remember. Here I told you ozone in the stratosphere. That is in the higher level of the atmosphere, upper region of the atmosphere, it is good because it prevents the entering of UV radiation into the atmosphere. But in the layers closer to the earth crust, that is the troposphere, it can cause diseases related to respiratory tracts in people, as well as it can reduce the yield of crops. Like that, there are many adverse effects caused by this bad ozone. So that is the secondary pollutant, and here you can see it is a secondary pollutant. Now in this diagram here you all can see it is a secondary pollutant. So now you all know the answer. A secondary pollutant affecting living beings favorably in the upper regions of the atmosphere and unfavorably in the lower regions of the atmosphere. It is O3. You can write the chemical formula, or you can write it as ozone. And another name that is used to indicate ozone is trioxygen. There are 3 oxygen atoms, so it is written as trioxygen. You can write that as well. So, one of the 3 answers, O3, ozone or trioxygen. So, like I have mentioned before students, I'll repeat that. So, in these questions, I'm writing all 3 answers which are correct. You need to write only one answer. Then the third one, a primary pollutant producing secondary pollutants which contribute to acid rains. So, you need to look at the secondary pollutants that contribute to acid rains. Now, if we go back, you all know normally in the atmosphere there is carbon dioxide, there is a small amount of nitrogen dioxide because due to lightning, nitrogen gas reacts with oxygen and nitrogen dioxide is formed. So, they dissolve in water, rainwater, and the rainwater is slightly acidic. But when there is more sulfur dioxide or sulfur trioxide, then of course there is more acidity. That means that form sulfuric acid, sulfurous acid, they are more acidic. The acidity of rainwater increases. So, the main contributant is considered as sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide, but you can also write nitrogen dioxide. So, those 3 can be written there. Then, we can write the answer as both SO2, or you can write as sulfur dioxide, or you can write NO2, nitrogen dioxide. So, here again students, for y'all, this is given as a table in the paper. You will be writing just one answer. So, for that the space provided is enough. But since I am writing all the possible answers only, I am writing out of the line as well. So, you have to keep that in mind. Then the fourth one, a primary pollutant with basic properties that liberates from the eutrophied water bodies. So, it has to be a primary pollutant with basic properties liberated from the eutrophied water. So, from eutrophied water, you all know students, I told you all, hydrogen sulfide, methane and ammonia are liberated. All of them due to the action of anaerobic bacteria on the dead organisms of eutrophied water. Out of those, if you look at the primary pollutants, you can see ammonia is given to you all, and you all know ammonia is a basic gas. H2S is acidic, methane is a hydrocarbon. So, the correct answer would be ammonia gas. So for that also, you can write it as NH3 or you can write as ammonia. So you need to write one of the two answers. It has to be basic primary pollutant liberated from eutrophied water bodies. Then the fifth one, a secondary pollutant that falls on soil and contributes to provide a main nutrient essential for plant growth. So it has to be a secondary pollutant, should fall on the soil, and it has to support plant growth. It has to be a nutrient for plant growth. If you try to find that, look at the secondary pollutants. There is sulfur trioxide, it's a gas. Then if you look at sulfuric acid, nitric acid, obviously with rainwater, they will fall on the soil. Ozone again, it is a gaseous component. So out of sulfuric acid and nitric acid, from sulfuric acid you get sulfates, from nitric acid you get nitrates. Now we have learned in the nitrogen cycle, you can remember the nitrification process, nitrogen fixation, biological fixation, industrial fixation and atmospheric fixation. So that the gases, nitrogen gas is converted to forms that can be absorbed by plants. So nitrates are needed for the growth of plants. So there, HNO3 will give you nitrate ions. So the answer for that question is HNO3, nitric acid. So here HNO3 or nitric acid. HNO3 or nitric acid. So that is the secondary pollutant that falls on soil and contributes to provide a main nutrient essential for plant growth. But students, for this particular paper in the marking scheme, they have given a free mark for this particular question. Because we need nitric acid, nitrates, but normally if you consider the nitrogen cycle, it is not from acid rain. It is actually by the process of nitrogen fixation, directly the N2 gas is converted to nitrates by different methods, or it can be converted to NH4 plus finally. So that is what is being absorbed. So maybe for that reason, they have actually given a free mark for this one. So I will mention that as well here. So here that is for the fifth question. They gave a free mark. So then, the sixth part of the question. Sixth one, if the food mileage is shortened, the amount of gaseous pollutants released from this pollutant source is reduced. So, if the food mileage is shortened, you know what food mileage is. If you have a plant in your home garden, say a mango tree, you get the mangoes from the home garden, or from the coconut tree, if you get the coconuts from your home garden, the distance traveled by that coconut is very less. You don't need to use any vehicle. So, you will not be burning any fuel. So, there the food mileage is less. The carbon footprint is also less. But if you say, if you are living in Colombo, you get something from Anuradhapura. Then from there to Colombo, there is transportation of that food. So, there is a certain amount of mileage covered by that food. But if you buy something that is produced in America, let's say wheat flour from America, there of course the wheat flour has to be transported. So, there the food mileage is very high. Now, when the food mileage is high, you all know that the amount of fuel that is used to transport that food is high. So, because of that, it increases the carbon footprint. So, if you want to reduce the carbon footprint, you need to reduce carbon dioxide. That is reduced if you reduce the use of fuel. So, if the food mileage is less, use of fuel is less, therefore, evolving of carbon dioxide is less. So, now you look at the question. If the food mileage is shortened, the amount of gaseous pollutants released, so that is carbon dioxide, from this pollutant source is reduced. So, they want you to find the pollutant source. So any source that uses carbon dioxide for the transportation of food. If you look at the diagram, they have given quite a lot. They have given the aircraft, there is the motor car, there is the passenger bus, and there are the maritime vessels, or you can write it as a ship. So all four use fuel. So all of them release carbon dioxide. You can write any one of the four things. So here aircraft, passenger bus, motor cars, maritime vessel, or you can write it as ship. Anyone can be written there. So all of them use fuel. When fuel is combusted, carbon dioxide is released. So the release of carbon dioxide can be reduced when food mileage is reduced. So when food mileage is released, the release of carbon dioxide can be released. So then, the last part of the question, if this mode of transport is selected, your carbon footprint during an inland tour can be minimized. So again, look at the words. Your mode of transport, your carbon footprint during an inland tour. So again, there are different modes of transport. Now, usually for an inland tour, we normally don't use a ship or an aircraft. You can use it, but it's not very common. The most commonly used ones are motor car and passenger bus. Now, if you use a motor car, only you are going to travel that particular distance. Maybe you or your family of 4 or 5 members only. So, the amount of carbon footprint will be greater. But if you use the passenger bus, the same distance, a little bit more fuel, but still when you divide it by the number of passengers, the carbon footprint per person will be less. So the question is, if this mode of transport is selected. So if you select the passenger bus, your carbon footprint during an inland tour can be minimized. So here, of course, the answer is passenger bus. Passenger bus. Is that clear, students? So when you answer these questions, you have to look at all the terms carefully. Accordingly, you need to select the relevant pollutant or the source from the given figure. I'm sure you all now understand how to answer this question. So with that, I will move on to the next question. So then, part B. In a populated city, the atmospheric nitrogen dioxide gas, that is NO2 gas, composition was measured during a day starting from Sunday midnight to Monday midnight. So 24 hours starting from Sunday midnight to Monday midnight. The variation graph of the composition of NO2 drawn using those data is given below. Answer the following questions based on the graph. So here you can see the graph, students. Composition is given as ppm. You all know what ppm is, parts per million. If you have the mass fraction, if you multiply it by 1 million, you get the parts per million value. So y-axis is the composition in parts per million. You can see 0, 0.01, 0.02, 0.03. So you can see it's a very small value. That is why we use ppm. Even in that, it is in 0.0 value, 2 decimal places, but still that can affect the environment and it can pollute the environment. So nitrogen dioxide gas. Here you can see time starts from 0, it goes on till 24 hours, 1 full day, no? That is starting from Sunday midnight to Monday midnight. So 24 hours is given there. Then you can see as they start the midnight, time 0, a little more than 0.01 ppm. Then it decreases. At 4 a.m., the nitrogen dioxide gas is very less. That's the minimum value. You can see that is the minimum value. Then again here 4 and 8. So this has to be half the mark is 6. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, you can see it's rising. From 0.01, it's going towards 0.02. Then at this point, you can see the highest value 0.03 is obtained at 8 a.m. in the morning, 8 a.m. 8 hours, because we start at 12 midnight. This is going to be 8 a.m. Then thereafter again towards 12, you can see there is gradual decrease. 10, 12, then 14 decrease. Again 16, there is a slight increase there. And after that, between 16 and 20, here you can see at this point is 18. 18 hours means starting from 0 to 18 hours, it's 6 p.m. in the evening. So here, like I said, this is 8 a.m. in the morning. This will be 6 p.m. in the evening, because 0 to 18 hours, 0 to 12 midnight to 12 noon, 12 noon to 18 is 6 p.m. in the evening. So there also you can see there is a high value. It's almost like 0.2025 ppm, like almost, it's not the exact value like that. Then again you can see it starts decreasing. 20 means 8 p.m., then 10 p.m., again midnight 12 p.m. it has come down. So that is how the nitrogen dioxide gas composition changes within a 24-hour day. The graph is given. We have to answer the questions based on that. The first question. What is the maximum and minimum NO2 composition existed on the relevant day? So maximum and minimum you can easily find. Minimum from the graph you can see 0.01. So minimum value is maximum and minimum. So then maximum you can see 0.03. So 0.03 ppm. You have to write the unit also. 0.03 ppm is the maximum value. Then minimum value 0.01 ppm. 0.01 ppm. So students, when you are writing the answer, you have to write the value in ppm, parts per million, because here it's the composition. You have to remember that. Is that okay? So maximum and minimum values. So then the second part in that question, in which hour of the day is the maximum NO2 composition recorded? So that of course you can easily identify. We already discussed 0.03 ppm. That is here. So that is recorded at the 8th hour. So if you write the answer as 8, that is fine, because here the time is given in hours as 8. But you all know that is like 8 a.m. because we start from midnight. So 8 hours is 8 a.m. Then with that, the next question, third one. According to the above graph, in the above city, 2 occasions are seen in which the NO2 composition assumes a high value in a day. Give a reason for it. Now, if we look at the graph, here the graph is given. So this is one instance, 8 hours, that is 8 a.m. We identified it as 8 a.m. And then you can see this point here. Also, it is high, but that is, earlier also I explained to you all, it is like 6 p.m. Although it is 18 hours, it is 6 p.m. between 16 and 20, 18 hours. But if you take it from 12 midnight to 12 noon, 12 hours, then 6 p.m. So 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. What could be the reason? Normally, you all know people travel to work, offices, industries, all that in the morning, closer to 8 a.m. Then again, they travel back home at 6 p.m. But there is a slight difference. What do you think? Now, here in the morning, lot of people are traveling. Almost all the offices, they start around 8 a.m. But towards afternoon, different people can leave from office at different times. So, because of that, here it is slightly less. That is the reason that you have to understand. So here the reason could be there are more vehicles on the road. So because of that, there is more NO2 released to the environment. So that is what we can write. We can say there is more traffic on the road, or we can say there are more vehicles on the road. You need to give that particular meaning. So that is what you need to write here. Or there is more vehicle traffic on the road. So that is the reason why the NO2 composition is high. Then the fourth part of the question. In the above city, the increase in the NO2 composition in the forenoon is greater than that of the afternoon. Give a reason for it. I have already given you all the reason. Here you can see 8 a.m. This is forenoon. Before noon. Forenoon. And this is afternoon. Afternoon. Here we can see this is forenoon before 12 noon, and here it is after noon. So there, forenoon the concentration is greater compared to afternoon. What is the reason? I said in the morning, forenoon there will be more vehicles on the road compared to the vehicles in the afternoon, because the time that they travel can vary. So that is the reason why the concentration is different. So here we can say the vehicle traffic in the forenoon is more than the afternoon. So if you write an answer similar to this, you can even say there is more traffic jam on the road in the forenoon compared to afternoon, or you can say there are more vehicles on the road in the forenoon compared to the afternoon. If you give that idea, then your answer will be correct. So is that clear, students? These are the parts of part B. I will move on to the next one. So here we have part 5. Now there, name another primary gaseous pollutant which would indicate a variation that corresponds to the variation of NO2 composition during the relevant day in the above city. So they want you to write the gases that can vary in a similar manner, similar to nitrogen dioxide. Now if you wrote the answers, if you understood the answers what we wrote before, you all know now this is related to the number of vehicles on the road as well. So when we say number of vehicles, there is combustion of fuel. So when there is combustion of fuel, obviously carbon dioxide will be released to the environment. That is during complete combustion. At the same time, there can be incomplete combustion also. So due to that, carbon monoxide will be released to the environment. At the same time, in fossil fuels, when you burn fuel combustion, there is sulfur dioxide that is again released to the environment. So their concentrations also can vary in this manner. The composition can vary in this manner. So here we can write carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, or sulfur dioxide. Even these you can write the names as well. So you can write it as carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, or you can write sulfur dioxide. So those can be written here. Now you can write any of these, any one of the answers only. You don't have to write all three. Name another primary gaseous pollutant. Now here students, we are not including sulfur trioxide. Why is that? Because sulfur trioxide is produced from sulfur dioxide. So it is a secondary pollutant. So because of that, we are not including that. Is that clear? So then I'll move on to the next question. So here, this is the second question of your structured paper. So let's look at the second question. Second one, A part. Given below is an incomplete table about 4 organelles existing in a cell and their main functions. Fill in the blanks and complete the table. So here the organelle is given in the first column, function is given in the second column. So they have spaces left there. The first one, you can see nucleus. Nucleus, what is the main function? Now you all know, if you take the nucleus of a cell, eukaryotic cells have an organized nucleus. When we say organized nucleus, it has a nuclear envelope that is connected to the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and also within the nuclear envelope you have the chromatin fibers or the chromatin body, that is the DNA, the chromosomes that store genetic information. Then there is the nucleolus that is also in the nucleus, and the main function of the nucleus is to control all the life activities of the cell. So that is the function of the nucleus. Control life activities of the cell. That is the function of the nucleus, main function. Here they have asked their main functions. So you all know main function is to control the life activities of the cell. What are the life activities? There is cellular respiration, secretion, transport of materials, protein synthesis. If it's a plant cell, photosynthesis, all those are life activities. Then the next one, they haven't given the organelle. Second one, they have given the function, providing energy required for metabolic activities. So obviously you all know what is the powerhouse of the cell. It is the mitochondrion. So that provides energy required for the metabolic activity. Mitochondrion. Then the third one, Golgi complex. Golgi complex. Now you can remember students, these are all the different organelles of the cell. Mitochondrion, you have seen, you can remember, it is like this. It is a rod-like structure with 2 membranes, and inside you have a folded membrane like that. Whereas if you look at the Golgi complex, these are membrane sac-like structures that are made from membranes with vesicles at the ends. What does this do? Now this Golgi complex actually produces secretory materials, packaging of it, and then the secretion. All that is carried out by Golgi complex. So if we write the answer there, production of secretory materials, packaging, and secretion. So that is the function of Golgi complex. Production of secretory materials, packaging, and secretion. Then the fourth one, organelle is not given, protein transport. What does protein transport? It is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum is involved in transport. Now there are 2 types, smooth and rough. Smooth ER does not have ribosomes. So that is involved in lipid and steroid transport. Whereas the rough endoplasmic reticulum that has the ribosomes on it is involved in transport of protein. So, rough endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum. So, you all can remember the structure of that as well. So, we have like that. And on the surface, you have a lot of ribosomes. So, that is why it's known as rough endoplasmic reticulum. So, there is protein synthesis and there the protein is transported. So, this is the question where you need to write the functions or the organelles related to the functions given to you. So, the first one, it is given as nucleus. So, I have given the answer, control life activities of the cell. That is the main function. But at the same time, like we discussed, as you all know, there is the DNA or chromosomes present in the nucleus. So, they actually store genetic information. So, if you write that answer also, you will get marks. So, here you can write more than one answers. I will write it here. You can say control life activities of the cell, or you can even say controls the metabolic activities of the cell. That is also fine. Controls the metabolic activities of the cell. Metabolic activities of the cell. Then you can say stores genetic information. So, stores genetic information. Or you can say transfer genetic information. Genetic information from generation to generation. So, all those can be written and all the answers are accepted for the exam. So, the main function, control life activities of the cell, that's how you have learned. But at the same time, these are also functions of the nucleus because there is the chromatin fiber, which is the chromosomes. So, there you can write these functions as well. But you need to write only one answer. Then, providing energy required for metabolic activities, of course, mitochondrion and the Golgi complex, production of secretory materials, packaging and secretion, you can write those. And also protein transport, you can, the exact one is rough endoplasmic reticulum, but at the same time, so you can leave out this part. Even if you write as endoplasmic reticulum, they will give marks. So, that is according to the marking scheme. I am giving answers related to the, according to the marking scheme as well. So, you can write it as endoplasmic reticulum. That is also accepted. Is that clear, students? So, then I'll move on to the next part of the question. So, B part, you can see the first one, an incomplete chart indicating the classification of plant tissues is shown below. Write the tissue types relevant to the boxes A, B, C and D on the dotted lines given and complete the table. So, here you can see the first part is plant tissue. That is divided into two types. One says permanent tissue, the other one is blank. So, you all know there are two main types. Permanent tissue, meristematic tissue. What is the difference? Meristematic tissue, they are undergoing cell division and they divide by mitosis. So, they are always dividing cells. Those are meristematic tissues. But permanent tissue, the cells that have been differentiated to perform a specific function. So, the two main types. So, here it has to be meristematic meristematic tissue. So, permanent and meristematic. Then permanent tissues are of two types. One is simple permanent tissue. What is the other one? Complex permanent tissue. Complex permanent tissue. Now, what is the difference? Simple permanent, it has only one type of cells in the tissue. And there are three types. You can remember parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Whereas complex permanent tissue, there are more than one type of cells in the tissue. There are two types. One is the xylem, that is involved in transport of water, and phloem, translocation of food. So, if you take the xylem, you all know there are the xylem vessels, then the tracheids, xylem parenchyma and xylem fiber. For four types of cells in the complex permanent tissue, xylem tissue. The same way phloem tissue, it has the sieve tube elements which forms a sieve tube, then the companion cells, the phloem fibers and the phloem parenchyma. That also has four types of cells. So, to answer these questions, fill up the rest. Simple permanent tissue has been divided parenchyma, collenchyma. Like I told you all, this should be sclerenchyma. The three types of simple permanent tissue. Then complex permanent tissue is divided as xylem tissue and phloem tissue. Phloem tissue. So, that is the complete table. So, plant tissues divided as permanent tissue and meristematic tissue. Permanent tissues are divided as simple permanent and complex permanent. Simple permanent, parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Whereas complex permanent tissue, xylem tissue and phloem tissue. So, we have filled the table. So, with that students, I'll move on to the next part. Second one there. What is the type of tissue in which photosynthesis occurs most? Now, you can remember we discussed all the types of plant tissues. Out of that, in parenchyma, there is lot of chloroplast. You can remember they are isodiametric cells. They have chloroplast, then there is photosynthesis. If you take the leaf also, you can remember there is the mesophyll cells, the palisade parenchyma and the spongy parenchyma. So, those cells contain chlorophyll, chloroplast. So, chloroplast contains chlorophyll. So, therefore, there is photosynthesis. So, parenchyma is the main tissue that carries out photosynthesis. In addition to that, you all know in young stems, there is collenchyma, dicot stems, that also contains chlorophyll. Then it can carry out photosynthesis, but the main tissue, here the question is what is the type of tissue in which photosynthesis occurs most? So, then of course, it is parenchyma. Parenchyma. Parenchyma, you can even write it as parenchyma tissue. Then the third one, name the type of tissue which contains sieve tube elements. Now, I already told you all. Phloem contains the sieve tube, the companion cell, the phloem fibers and the phloem parenchyma. So, it is phloem tissue. Is that correct, student? So, part C of the question. An apparatus set by a group of students to investigate a product of photosynthesis is shown in the diagram. So, if we look at the diagram given here. Now, you are familiar with this setup, no students? We have done this activity also. So, here you can see there is a beaker that contains hydrilla plant. Hydrilla, you all know, is an aquatic plant. So, that is kept inside the funnel, and then over the funnel you can see here a test tube that is filled with water. So, you all know this is to observe the product of photosynthesis, the byproduct of photosynthesis. What is that? That is oxygen gas. So, you all know if we keep this in the sunlight, then what will happen? You can see the liberation of gas bubbles from the hydrilla plant. So, then what happens when the gas bubbles liberate? The water is displaced downwards and the gas collects over it. And to confirm that it is oxygen gas, you all know what we do. We insert a glowing splinter. And the glowing splinter, if there is oxygen, will rekindle, relight and burn with a bright flame. So that is how we observe. That is the activity here. So I am sure you all can remember that. Now we'll look at the questions. So here, an apparatus set by a group of students to investigate a product of photosynthesis is shown in the diagram. So you all know it is to observe oxygen. First question. What is the gas collected in the test tube when this apparatus is kept in the sunlight? So what is it? It's oxygen. You can write the chemical symbol or O2, or you can write it as oxygen gas. You can even just write it as oxygen. It's fine. So either O2, oxygen or oxygen gas. Like I told you all students, I am writing both the answers so that you become familiar with both of them. You need to write only one answer. Then, the second part. State a test that can be done to identify that gas and the observation you make during the test. So, I mentioned the test to you all. What do? You insert a glowing splinter into the test tube. So, you have to write that. Insert a glowing splinter. That is very important. Glowing splinter into the test tube. Test tube. Insert a glowing splinter into the test tube. What will be the observation? The splinter will burn brightly, or it will burn with a bright flame. So we can say splinter burns with a bright flame. So in this, students, the important thing is you have to insert a glowing splinter, because you all know if it is hydrogen gas, we insert a burning splinter. So that has to be specified here, glowing splinter, and the observation will be it burns with a bright flame. So that is how you confirm it is oxygen gas, because oxygen is a supporter of combustion. You all know that. So with that, I'll move on to the next part of the question, same question. So the third part of the question, a new apparatus similar to the above apparatus was made by putting water saturated with carbon dioxide gas instead of normal water. Right. So here, what is the change they are doing? They are adding water saturated with carbon dioxide gas instead of normal water. So in the previous activity, you all know the factors that are needed for photosynthesis. Sunlight, carbon dioxide, water and chlorophyll. So out of those, sunlight, carbon dioxide and water are the external factors. So in the previous activity, there is water. It is an aquatic plant that is kept inside water. So water is there. We place it in direct sunlight so that there is enough sunlight. And also the plant gets carbon dioxide from the water. So the carbon dioxide that has already dissolved in water is taken up by the plant hydrilla. So that amount of carbon dioxide is limited. But here what they do is they use water saturated with carbon dioxide. What is the meaning of saturation? That means there is maximum possible carbon dioxide dissolved in water. That is the saturated solution, maximum amount of solute dissolved in water, in the solvent. So that is the saturated solution. So there is maximum amount of carbon dioxide that can dissolve in water, dissolved already. So that means the amount of carbon dioxide is high in the second setup or the new apparatus. Then we look at the questions. A part, state an observation that could be expected with regard to the evolution of gas bubbles in the new apparatus when comparing with the evolution of gas bubbles in the first apparatus under similar environmental conditions. So what do you think? All the other factors are same. Sunlight, water, the same plant, everything is the same. Room temperature, all are same. Only difference is the amount of carbon dioxide. In the previous one, less carbon dioxide. Now there is more carbon dioxide. So what will happen? The rate of photosynthesis will increase. There will be more photosynthesis happening. Then what will happen? There will be more oxygen liberated. So we can say rate of liberation of gas bubbles will be high. That is one possibility. The other possibility is that since it is saturated with carbon dioxide, the plant will get carbon dioxide for a longer period of time. So let's say initially in the first setup, there is a certain amount of carbon dioxide. When that is used up, photosynthesis will stop. So the liberation of gas bubbles will stop. But here there is more carbon dioxide. So because of that, there will be photosynthesis taking place for a longer period of time. Then of course, you will see the gas bubbles being liberated for a longer period of time. So you can write one of the two observations. But as I do, I'll be writing both the observations. So first one, rate of liberation of gas bubbles. Gas bubbles increases, or you can say gas bubbles will be liberated for a longer time. So you can write one of the two observations. Either there will be more gas bubbles liberated, rate at which the gas bubbles are liberated will be higher, or else there will be liberation of gas bubbles for a longer period of time. Either way, there is more photosynthesis taking place or for a longer time. Then, the B part. Give reasons for the observation you mentioned above. So you have mentioned these two observations, or you will be mentioning one of the two observations, but both of them are related to the amount of carbon dioxide dissolved in water. So that is what you have to write here. There is more carbon dioxide dissolved in water. Thus, there will be more photosynthesis. So if you write that, that is fine. So you have to say that there is more CO2 dissolved in water. Or you can say concentration of carbon dioxide in water is more. Composition of carbon dioxide is more. Or the amount of carbon dioxide dissolved in water is more. Because of that, the photosynthesis occurs more. You have to give that idea. Is that clear, students? So with that, students, I have completed the second structured question. And with that, I am going to end this chapter, and in the next chapter, I will discuss the third structured question with you all.
To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.